folks, it's time. It's time.
Wait a minute. Who broke what today?
Yes.
Haven't even been in the door good. Somebody broke something.
I don't know if this is breaking, but I will say this: it is actually a continuation. The first call that we had last week.
Yes,
The first call that we had last week, we I believe we talked about COVID, and we had a caller call in and say that the U.S. government was letting illegal immigrants in and had lost track of them.
Yeah, I remember
And
that.
so I said, look, I don't know anything about that. I don't want to pile on and put some sauce on the gravy. I don't want to put no gravy on it until I can eat it. Okay.
Right.
So I'm not trying to put no gravy on nothing I can't eat. So I did some research into this, and I actually found that this is from Axios, so it's not from some dubious news source, that about 50,000 migrants who crossed the southern border illegally have now been released into the United States without a court date.
Ooh.
Yeah. Now, they were told to report to ICE, but only 13% have shown up thus far.
Oh,
This is Axios, not some dubious,
right.
reporting. A lot of people
So-
like to attack the source. People, oh my God, you get it from Fox News. Look, this is Axios. You can look it up. They break lots of credible stories in their very credible website. And so, yeah, only 13%, which is about 6,000 of the 50,000 who have essentially been dispersing into the country, have shown up reported to ICE. Now, the sizable numbers are just a sign of how overwhelmed some sectors of the U.S.-Mexico border continues to be. A single stretch covering the Rio Grande Valley had 20,000 apprehensions in a week. The figures also showed the shortcomings of recent emergency decisions to release migrants. Now, it is said to be unprecedented for agents to release migrants without an official notice to appear in court. Where it has occurred recently, migrants have instead been given a list of addresses and contacts for ICE offices around the country and told to report to one of them.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the honor system, bro. We're using the honor system here. The hope has been for migrants to show up at these offices after reaching their final destination to get work permit. But just 6,700 of the migrants who crossed between March and mid-July showed up at ICE offices as of Monday.
Well,
So
that makes sense because they don't trust it.
Right.
They figure, oh, you just want to get me there so you can, pack me off and put me back on the other side of the border.
Right. 16,000 have not showed up and passed the 60-day reporting window they were given. That's 2.4 no-shows for everyone that is checked in. Another roughly 27,000 who have crossed were released during the same time have yet to show up, but remain within the 60-day window for showing up. Now, meanwhile, migrants are continuing to be released. Representative Henry Cuellar of Texas told Axios that as of Monday, 7,300 migrants in the Rio Grande Valley sector had been released during the past week without court dates. Cuellar said the total number of migrants released was up to 55,000. Yeah.
Okay.
So the big picture is new data is coming as immigration agents highlight over 20,000 apprehensions made in just 1 week, as I said earlier. That's after months of higher than normal border crossing, record month for encounters with migrants, and more than 1 million apprehensions for the year. 1 million, Rev.
So where do we go from here?
That's
what's the next. What's the solution?
I mean, that's now. See, here's the thing that's crazy, right? Now, I'm not saying it's crazy, but even as infected migrants are pouring in, all the foreign tourists have to get vaxxed. They all have to get vaxxed. So this also broke this week. The Biden administration will force all foreign visitors to be fully vaccinated, even if it simultaneously waves hundreds of thousands of COVID positive migrants into the United States. And the administration official told Reuters the White House is working on a new system for when travel resumes. The plan will include a phased approach that will over time mean that with limited exceptions, that foreign nationals traveling to the United States from all countries will need to be fully vaccinated. On its face, the requirement could be justified, but critics would be wise to point out that the similar measures are not enforced on our porous southern border. So it is of limited utility. Now listen to this, Rev. McAllen, Texas. I know you've heard of McAllen. It's one of the famous border towns. It has been described as a ground zero for the border crisis. A reporter found that of the 7,000 migrants that have been released into the city last week, at least 1,500 folks tested positive for COVID-19. These migrants were not held in any sanitary conditions. The reporter also reported that after being tested for COVID-19, migrants would be walked to the Catholic Charities Humanitarian Respite Center. The center's facilities have been strained so much they have half a dozen portable toilets in its back alley. Wow. So here's what's going on. Like, okay, and I'm here every day, having a listen to all of the issues and answers hosts, and you have all these people, and they have their guests on, and they're sitting here blaming all of us who have not gotten the shot for any variants.
Yeah, yeah. I heard
Okay.
all day long.
Okay, so meanwhile, I'm wearing a mask. I wear a mask when I'm in here by myself. Okay?
Yeah.
I wear a mask when I'm in here alone. Okay? And I wear gloves and everywhere I go. Been social distancing now for a year and a half. Okay, meanwhile, you have people flooding across the southern border, who have not been vaccinated. The ones who've been tested, a large percentage of them are coming up positive for COVID-19, which makes sense because Mexico, they're traveling through Mexico, a country where only 25% of that population is vaccinated. And then you have hundreds of thousands of, we've seen a million, we've had 1 million encounters thus far, according to Henry Cuellar and them. Meanwhile, we have people coming from other countries in Central and South America, which have all been hit very hard by COVID. And but yet they have the nerve to say, well, if you're going to come from England and France, then you're going to come from rich countries. If you're going to come from Canada or something, then you better be vaccinated. Meanwhile, you're letting the southern border just has poor, unvaccinated, sometimes infected people just strolling in and having all kinds of interactions with people at the Catholic Church and everything else.
Wow. Well, it's part of it, I guess. The way things are right now, there's some things that are kind of hard to say because if you say them and if you don't say them just exactly the right way,
the liberals will kill you.
You can be open to accusations of being elitist or being what would it be called, ethnophobic or
yep,
something like that. But on the one hand, these countries, the southern South American countries, the Central American countries, in many cases, they don't have the medical resources that we have here in America, which would make sense then for somebody from there to try to get here in order to get access to these vaccinations and stuff like that that we have. That we can throw up a vaccination tent city, at the turn of a dime.
Yes, we can.
Just remember what we did at the former Gary Roosevelt High School.
Yes, we can.
We can do it like that. Well, they can't do it like that in El Salvador.
They cannot.
So why wouldn't people come here to try to get help? And there are some who would argue that, we, because we're the United States of America, that we have a moral obligation to help everybody who needs help. I'm I'm mindful of the fact that when you read the Bible, it talks about Jesus healing the sick.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some cases where it'll even say he healed everybody who was present. But then there's a story that has always struck me. It's in the Gospel of John where he goes to this place. It's called the Pool of Siloam. And people would bring folk to the Pool of Siloam because there was this story, if you will, this folk religious concept that an angel would come and move the water, and the first person to get in the water when it was moved would get healed. So people would bring their sick to this pool. And Jesus comes there and he sees this guy. The guy is paralyzed. And he goes up to the guy. Now remember, there's all these other people. But he goes up to this one guy and he says, how long have you been here? The guy says, I've been here 38 years. And Jesus looks at him and says, get up and walk. And the guy does. And he, it's great for him. It's a wonderful day for him. But what about all those other people?
Right. Right.
And so people will say it's all or nothing. Either we can fix everything or it's terrible. If we can't fix everything, it's rotten to the core. Well, there were times when Jesus didn't fix everything. There are times when we don't fix everything. In fact, there are times when we can't fix everything. What are we supposed to do when we can't fix everything?
Right. Look, Cesar Chavez said it best. We cannot import Mexico's power.
The Mexican government to bring the Bracero program again. It's a vicious attack on the local worker, and it's just one of those things that every business thinks they can get away with it. And our job is to inform the whole country what's happening, together with a boycott, and solve it that way. And so the workers themselves, even though a lot of them are Mexican descendancy themselves, are very uptight and very, very worried and very mad about the illegals coming to break their strikes, and it takes away their jobs, their livelihood, and so forth.
Does that put you in an uncomfortable position to be against the illegal immigrants because they are from Mexico? In other words, part of your program has been an appeal to equal treatment of people of Mexican origin, right?
Oh yeah, sure, but we're speaking of the legal ones. We don't want Mexico to export its poverty to us, and then we pay. It's not the agriculture, it's not society in general, it's the farm worker again paying for those sins,
Exactly. It is not our place to import Mexico or Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, any of these countries' poverty. I'm sorry. Like you said, Rev, sometimes you just can't help everybody. And this crisis, this COVID-19 crisis that they want to, exploit to take away people's civil liberties, that they want to exploit, the drug companies have exploited, it's really, it annoys me to see people who once again, the minute you say you don't trust the government, after all they've done, you don't trust the drug company. Hell, I just listened to one of the Pfizer executives talking about how they were going to exploit this crisis in a call from shareholders that, listen to what he had to say.
And not as, so we don't see this as a one-time event, but we see this as something that's going to continue for the foreseeable future.
For the foreseeable future.
Now, in terms of pricing, let me see if I can hit on that. So if you look at how current demand and current pricing is being driven, it's clearly not being driven by what I'll call normal market conditions, normal market forces. It's really been driven by kind of the pandemic state that we've been in and the needs of governments to really secure doses from the various vaccine suppliers. So what I believe is we move from a pandemic state, from a pandemic situation to an endemic situation. Normal market forces, normal market conditions will start to kick in. And factors like efficacy, booster ability, clinical utility will, basically become very important. And we view that as, quite frankly, a significant opportunity for our vaccine from a demand perspective, from a pricing perspective, given the clinical profile of our vaccine.
So they making money.
Oh,
They're gonna make
yeah.
some real money with the booster, and this is gonna go from a pandemic to an endemic situation. Again, they're so worried about all these variants, but then they're letting thousands of people, close to 1 million people in the country disperse and show up when they want to at ICE. Let me get this caller really quick. Hello, caller.
Hi, guys. Bill.
Bill,
Hi, Bill.
Hold on, Bill. Could you stay with me for a minute? Because I need to go to a commercial break. Can we get you after the commercial break?
Yeah, it'll be my pleasure.
All right, now.
Thank
We'll be right back after this on WLTH 1370 AM. Please give us a call. The number again is 219-885-1371. We'll be right back after this. You are listening to Scott and the Rev on WLTH 1370 AM. Give us a call, 219-885-1370.